I'm Congressman Greg Steube, and I'm honored to represent Florida's 17th Congressional District. Holding the Chinese Communist Party accountable has been one of my top priorities in Congress. The Chinese Communist Party is one of the leading human rights violators in the world, and organ harvesting is only one example of their egregious crimes. Just months ago, our Director of National Intelligence stated that China is national security threat number one. In 2018, the Department of State released its country reports on human rights practices and highlighted China for engaging in some of the worst human rights violations. In addition to openly spying on their citizens, the Chinese government has over 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps in China's Xinjiang province. It is here that many organs are harvested from their prisoners and sold to the black market. This is an atrocious example of religious persecution, and one of the many reasons why our country needs to be tough on China. Last Congress, I introduced a resolution condemning the United Nations' decision to appoint China a seat on its Human Rights Council and demanded serious reform if the United States is going to remain in the United Nations and provide funding to countries that ignore basic human rights. I also signed on to legislation to promote and protect religious freedom domestically. I joined my colleagues in sending a letter to former Attorney General Barr, urging him to support rolling back unreasonable restrictions on religious worship during COVID-19. Communist China cannot bear the thought of such freedom because the existence of freedom threatens their society. I also co-sponsored legislation from Representative Mooney that promotes religious freedom in America so that our country can continue to be a shining city on a hill and a global example for religious rights. Combating the threat of China doesn't end at holding them accountable for their human rights violations. The Chinese Communist Party also poses a dire threat to our intellectual property, personal information, and national security, especially as they attempt to infiltrate our universities and steal our data and research. I introduced the Chinese Communist Party Visa Disclosure Act to prevent the theft of our intellectual property and personal information. This legislation will require non-citizens applying for certain United States visas to disclose if they receive funds from the government of the People's Republic of China or the Chinese Communist Party, and will prevent their crimes domestically. Just in Florida, we have had many instances of Chinese spying in our universities and medical research facilities. The Chinese Communist Party lied to the world during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic and downplayed the severity of COVID-19 to international health officials. If Communist China had been transparent about COVID-19, then hundreds of thousands of lives nationally and millions of lives worldwide could have been saved. I will continue to use my position in Congress and as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee to be tough on China and make efforts to hold them culpable for their behavior. Thank you, and God bless.